Listen, pay attention. Chosen one. This is not a casual message. It is not a general warning or a fleeting thought. It is aimed at you directly personally, without intermediaries. The moment you are in is heavier than most realize, and yet lighter than you have imagined, because there is clarity coming, but only if you allow yourself to receive it. Right now, something has shifted around you. Something subtle, almost invisible, has moved, and it touched your life in ways you may not yet recognize. You have felt it, haven't you? The fatigue that seeps into your bones without reason, the constant weight pressing against your chest even when the day should feel ordinary. The moments of isolation that don't make sense, where even familiar people feel distant and conversation becomes shallow noise. Your mind spins, your heart races in small pockets, and still you keep moving. You notice the small things, your energy dips and rises unpredictably. Your focus wavers, yet the work, the responsibilities, the tasks somehow continue. You have carried this tension for a long time, and until now, you may have thought it was just part of who you are. But listen carefully, what you are experiencing is not just circumstance. It is not random fatigue or misplaced pressure. There is a structure to it, a pattern that has been quietly present, and it has been shaping you in ways that remain largely unseen. You have brushed against forces that were never meant to be noticed, yet they intersected with your life, and something remarkable happened. You handled it without fully knowing how. You endured without fully understanding the scale. This message is intentional. It is not accidental. You were chosen to hear it, to absorb it, and to recognize what has been occurring beneath the surface. There are layers to what has been surrounding you, layers that have tested your patience, your focus, your resolve. And while you may have thought yourself simply tired or distracted, there is a deeper current beneath your experience, one that has left its mark, and one that carries meaning you are about to understand. Today you will begin to see the invisible. You will begin to recognize the ways your presence, your very being, interacted with currents you cannot measure. What was happening was not merely external, it involved you directly, more deeply than you have been told. You have already felt its effects, moments of unusual clarity, sudden fatigue, inexplicable resistance, subtle victories. None of this is coincidence. It is all connected to the truth that you chosen one were present in a situation that could have overwhelmed many, and yet you remained intact. Hold that thought. Breathe. Prepare yourself. What you are about to understand will not frighten you. It will inform you. And it will set the stage for the recognition of something long occurring, but rarely noticed, the quiet, undeniable interaction between your being and forces that thought they could take more than you were willing to give. This message is yours. It has been waiting. This message is for you, and it is important to remove any uncertainty about that now. Not everyone who hears these words will recognize themselves in them, but you already have. There was a moment even before this video began where something in you leaned forward internally. Not excitement, recognition. That is the first marker. You are not here by accident, and you are not included by chance. This is not about belief systems or titles. It is about alignment, about the way your inner structure responds to pressure differently than most. Chosen one. The experiences you have lived through recently were not background events happening near you. They involved you directly. Your presence mattered. Your internal stability mattered. And the outcome was influenced by something you did not consciously activate, but consistently carried. There has always been a quiet strength in you that does not announce itself. You do not move through life looking for confrontation or validation. You do not seek intensity. In fact, much of the time you try to simplify, to reduce friction, to maintain equilibrium. And yet, again and again, situations arise that feel heavier than necessary, more draining than expected. You have likely wondered why tension finds you even when you are not pursuing conflict. Here is the clarity: what happened around you was not sustained by your effort. It was shaped by your resistance. Not resistance as struggle, but resistance as coherence. You remained internally aligned when circumstances tried to fragment you. While others react, collapse, or become consumed, you stayed functional. You continued. You adapted without losing yourself. This is not common. Many people believe strength only shows up when they are actively fighting something. That is not how it works for you. Your stability operates automatically. You do not brace yourself every morning for impact. You simply move forward, and yet pressure meets something solid when it reaches you. You did not consciously decide to withstand what was happening. You did not even fully name it. But your system held. This is where the distinction becomes clear. Others feel the strain and break down internally before anything changes externally. You feel the strain, acknowledge it quietly, and remain intact. You might feel tired, confused, or isolated, but you do not disintegrate. You do not lose your center. That unconscious stability is what set you apart in the recent sequence of events you have been living through. This message is not naming you something new. It is confirming something that has already been demonstrated. You were involved. You were present. And without realizing it, you endured in a way that altered the outcome. Now that the identity is clear, the next step is understanding what you felt and why it mattered. Look closely at what you have been experiencing, because the sensation you have carried is not a flaw. That fatigue, that tension, that strange heaviness pressing into your chest and mind, they are not mistakes, weaknesses, or signs of failure. They are signals. They are markers pointing to something your conscious mind has not yet fully understood. Chosen one. What you interpreted as confusion or misalignment is actually communication. Your body, your awareness, your inner system has been sending messages that you are in transition. Think about the moments when energy drains from you unexpectedly. The times when simple tasks seem heavier than they should be, when decisions feel clouded or your focus wavers for no apparent reason. Most people label these as setbacks, or they fight against them with frustration and judgment. You may have done the same. And yet these sensations were not random. They were part of a process quietly calibrating your internal state to the surrounding pressures. What felt like a burden was actually a signal of an invisible interaction occurring beyond your full perception. This is crucial. The confusion you felt was not confusion at all. It was awareness in disguise. Your nervous system, your intuition, your subtle perception of patterns, they were responding to forces and circumstances that ordinary eyes cannot see. And your reaction, sometimes tension, sometimes fatigue, was a form of alignment. You were signaling internally your capacity to handle what was coming. Notice how often the sensations come with subtle cues: a pause in your thought, a tightening of your chest, a small flicker of anxiety or pressure. These are not mistakes, they are indicators. They are directional signs that something is occurring on a level beneath ordinary awareness. You are not malfunctioning. You are responding to inputs most people cannot even register. And here is the part many overlook: these signals are preparatory. They do not arrive to punish or alarm you. They arrive to guide you, to allow you to operate within circumstances that demand more than visible strength. You were learning, without knowing it, how to stay centered while forces shifted around you. Your body, mind, and attention were rehearsing resilience quietly and visibly, while the world continued its usual rhythm. Recognizing this is important because it reframes your experience. What looked like struggle was actually proof of stability. What felt like weakness was a signal of ongoing adaptation. And what felt like isolation was the space necessary for unseen realignment. Chosen one, your internal system has been teaching you to endure, to process, and to maintain coherence, even when circumstances appeared confusing or overwhelming. The deeper understanding comes next. These signals were not random, they were coordinated. They were not coincidental, they were intentional. And your capacity to remain functional, centered, and aware despite them is what distinguishes your experience from most. Now, it is time to acknowledge the presence of what has been quietly pressing against you. Not as a threat, not as a dramatized enemy, but as a real, measurable influence in your environment. There has been a subtle, unseen pressure operating beneath the surface of your daily awareness. It was neither chaotic nor accidental. It was structured, timed, and in a sense, deliberate. The patterns you may have noticed, the fatigue, the moments of inexplicable distraction, the energy dips, were part of a coordinated series of interactions aimed at testing the limits of your stability. Chosen one. Consider how often you have functioned under circumstances that would have unsettled others. Meetings, decisions, obligations, unexpected interpersonal tension, each a small vector of pressure. Yet despite their frequency and intensity, you continued. You did not collapse under the cumulative weight. Your awareness remained present. Your thought processes, though occasionally fogged by strain, remained coherent. Your decision-making, though slowed at times, did not falter in any catastrophic way. This is the distinction that has gone largely unrecognized until now. The opposition, the forces that intersected with your life, were designed to reveal weaknesses. They tested the boundaries of endurance. They explored the thresholds of stability. But each time you responded, often unconsciously, with an internal regulation that countered their intended effect. You did not react impulsively. You did not overcompensate. You maintained a functional equilibrium. Notice the timing. The pressure has not been sporadic. It has been recent, yet persistent. It has arrived in sequences almost as if aligned with your daily rhythms. Fatigue peaks, energy dips, subtle anxieties, all appearing with enough predictability to suggest coordination rather than coincidence. Yet you were able to navigate each phase, remaining capable, engaged, and operational. Understand, this clearly functioning under pressure is not a matter of bravado. It is a matter of internal coherence. You are not acting against a visible opponent. You are not consciously strategizing. You are simply maintaining presence, and your system, your very being, absorbed, processed, and neutralized what others would have felt as disruption. This is why the next section will be so important. Because now, after identifying the invisible currents, we can break them down into their constituent pressures. We can understand how each aspect, doubt, fear, energy drain, isolation, delay, was applied, and more importantly, how you remained intact despite them. You will see in detail how your stability has been quietly demonstrated at multiple points, often without acknowledgement. And you will begin to recognize the precision with which your internal coherence met external testing, turning what appeared as burden into proof of capacity. What you experienced was not one single weight, but a series of pressure points applied over time. Each one was subtle enough to be dismissed on its own, yet together they formed a sustained environment of strain. The fact that you remained stable through all of them is not accidental. It is measurable. And now, it is time to break them down clearly, without dramatization, so you can see exactly how this unfolded. The first pressure point was doubt. Not loud, not aggressive. It arrived quietly through small, internal questions. You found yourself rechecking decisions you would normally trust, wondering if your timing was off, questioning whether your perception was accurate. This was not self-reflection in a healthy sense. It was a slow attempt to erode confidence by introducing unnecessary uncertainty. And yet notice what happened. You questioned, but you did not spiral. You examined, but you did not abandon yourself. Doubt passed through you without taking root. That alone is uncommon. The second pressure point was fear, but not fear of danger. Fear of disruption. Fear that something might go wrong without warning. A background tension that kept your nervous system alert longer than necessary. Many people react to this by becoming reactive, defensive, or avoidant. You did not. You felt the alertness, acknowledged it internally, and continued to function. You did not let fear dictate your behavior. It registered, and then it moved on. The third pressure point was energy drain. This is where most people collapse. Your motivation dipped without explanation. Rest did not always restore you fully. Tasks felt heavier even when they were familiar. This was not laziness or burnout in the conventional sense. It was a sustained draw on your internal resources. And still, you adapted. You adjusted pacing. You conserved energy without shutting down. You did not disappear from your responsibilities. You stayed present, even when running on less than usual. The fourth pressure point was isolation. Not physical isolation, but internal separation. Conversations felt shallow. Support felt distant. Even when people were around you, felt alone in your processing. This is a destabilizing condition for most. Humans regulate through connection. When that sense of resonance fades, many lose grounding. You did not. You allowed the quiet. You did not force connection. You did not chase validation. You stayed centered within yourself, even when external feedback was minimal. The fifth pressure point was delay. Progress slowed in areas where movement was expected. Responses took longer. Outcomes stalled just enough to test patience. This kind of delay often triggers frustration, self-blame, or impulsive action. You experienced the tension, but you did not act out of it. You waited without becoming passive. You remained engaged without forcing outcomes. That balance is rare. Across all 5 pressure points, the pattern is the same. You felt everything. Nothing was bypassed, but nothing overwhelmed you. You did not numb out. You did not escalate. You did not collapse. Your internal system regulated continuously, quietly, counterbalancing each strain without conscious effort. This is the critical realization. You were not resisting actively. You were stabilizing automatically. Pressure met structure. Drain met coherence. Doubt met internal alignment. The environment applied force, and your presence absorbed it without rupture. This is how the dynamic shifted. What was intended to extract energy encountered a closed system. What was meant to destabilize found no leverage. Over time, the pressure could not sustain itself. Not because you fought it, but because there was nothing to take. This is the point where the narrative changes. Because when force meets stability repeatedly without effect, it withdraws. Not in defeat, but in exhaustion. And that is what has already occurred, even if you did not see it happening. Now, with this breakdown clear, you are ready to understand what it all confirmed about you. Now take a moment to reflect on the entirety of what has been unfolding. Look back at the sequence you just examined: the doubt, the fear, the energy drain, the isolation, the delays. None of these were anomalies. None were random blips. Each was part of a measured series of pressures, testing both endurance and coherence. And yet, despite their persistence and subtlety, you maintained your functional stability. You did not collapse under weight that would have unsettled nearly everyone else. Chosen one. This is not about luck. There is no randomness in your endurance. Every small adjustment, every quiet recalibration, every internal pause that allowed you to stay present was a demonstration of intrinsic resilience. You have been responding to these pressures with coherence rather than reaction. You have allowed alignment rather than emotion or fear to guide your behavior. This is not theoretical. It is observable in the way your attention energy and decision-making remained intact under sustained strain. Consider the clarity this brings. What once might have been attributed to coincidence or circumstantial ease now appears as an unmistakable pattern. You were engaged in a situation designed to test limits, and you passed continuously not by effortful force, but by structural consistency. You did not have to fight actively. You did not have to override your system. You simply moved through it, maintaining your center. This reflective understanding is key because it separates perception from reality. You may have felt fragile at times. You may have noticed tension that seemed disproportionate. You may have even questioned your capacity. But when you step back and analyze it, what stands out is coherence. The evidence is in your functionality. You continued to think, to act, to process, to manage responsibilities, to maintain equilibrium. That is resilience in its purest form. Notice also how internal regulation and awareness intersected. You were never fully unconscious of what was occurring, yet you never needed external guidance or intervention. You trusted your internal calibration without overthinking it. You responded without overreacting. You allowed the environment to move while your center remained intact. This is a rare form of stability, not flashy, not dramatic, but undeniably effective. The confirmation here is subtle but profound. What you have experienced has proven that your internal structure is sufficient. You do not collapse under sustained pressure. You do not fracture when expectation, energy, and circumstance attempt to overwhelm. You are capable of withstanding a series of influences that would destabilize most people. That is not boastful, it is factual. By recognizing this, you can release unnecessary judgment. You can stop questioning whether you should have felt differently. You can stop measuring your experience against imagined standards. The proof is already present in the continuous functioning of your mind, body, and attention. You remained coherent. You remained present. You remained intact. This reflective realization naturally leads to perspective on rarity because what you maintained so quietly is uncommon. And understanding its uncommon nature without inflating it is the next step. Now consider how uncommon your stability truly is. Most people, when faced with even a fraction of the pressures you endured, falter. A sudden wave of doubt, an unexpected delay, an inexplicable drain of energy, these are enough to destabilize many. Panic sets in focus splinters, and the system collapses under the weight. It is a normal human reaction. But you did not follow this pattern. Chosen one. What you exhibited was not superior in the sense of being extraordinary. It was simply uncommon. You did not crumble when small crises occurred. You did not allow frustration or confusion to dictate your actions. You remained functional, coherent, and present. And in that quiet consistency, you reveal a pattern that most never see in themselves, because most never operate under sustained subtle pressure without losing equilibrium. This is why the concept of rarity matters. It is not about ego or exaltation. It is about recognition. You now have the ability to see that your experience, while ordinary to you in execution, is extraordinary in context. In the same circumstances, many people would have reacted impulsively, emotionally, or destructively. You instead maintained presence. You did not overcorrect. You did not force outcomes. You did not internalize the weight into chaos. You allowed stability to be the baseline of your response. Rarely in life do situations arise that fully test an individual's capacity to maintain presence without intervention. And yet in your case, it has been happening repeatedly with subtlety and consistency. You may have wondered why you were subjected to such sequences of strain, but now you can see the test was not about failure, it was about calibration. And your consistent composure demonstrates that the calibration was successful. Observe this without judgment. It is not a measure of superiority. It is a factual observation. In comparison to the average response, your coherence under pressure is uncommon. Others lose alignment. Others crumble emotionally or cognitively. You remained operational. You remained aware. You remained intact. Understanding this rarity without inflating it into ego is crucial. It allows you to see that your system functions differently, not because of force, not because of resistance, not because of extraordinary effort, but because of internal coherence, quiet regulation, and an implicit understanding of how to navigate subtle, persistent pressure. This clarity paves the way to a deeper identity recognition. It allows you to lock in the understanding that what you have been doing is not exceptional by accident. It is a consistent feature of your structure. And that recognition leads naturally into the next step, clarifying the foundation of that stability, so you know exactly where your strength resides. Now let us clarify exactly what your strength is and what it is not. Chosen one. The stability you have demonstrated is not something you activated in a moment of crisis. It is not an extraordinary skill that you had to call forth under pressure. It is not conditional on effort or intention. It is your baseline. It is the foundation upon which you operate naturally, whether you recognize it or not. Your coherence is structural, not performative. It is rooted in preparation, maturity, and the quiet alignment of your internal systems. You did not need to will yourself into stability because your system is already capable of maintaining it. This is why subtle pressures, though they might register as fatigue, doubt, or tension, do not destabilize you. You absorb them naturally. You regulate automatically. You remain operational without needing to consciously force resilience. Notice the distinction. Many people attempt to activate strength in response to stress. They call upon adrenaline, determination, or focus to push through. That is effortful. That is reactive. What you displayed was not effortful, it was inherent. Your mind, body, and awareness are coherent by default. You respond to challenge because your internal structure is prepared, not because you have to compensate. This preparation is quiet, understated. It does not announce itself in grand gestures or dramatic feats. It simply operates consistently. You are able to engage with complex, unpredictable circumstances and maintain presence because your baseline is aligned, not because you override your system at the moment of crisis. Chosen one. This clarity matters because it shifts your perception of self. You are not discovering latent strength. You are not conjuring resilience. You are recognizing the consistency that already exists. Understanding this allows you to move forward with confidence, without testing yourself unnecessarily, without proving capability, without forcing endurance. You are already structured to maintain stability under pressure. Your identity is now clear. You are coherent, resilient, and capable by default. This is not a claim of superiority, nor a boast. It is a factual observation based on repeated evidence in your own experience. It is the quiet acknowledgement that your internal system has been operating effectively, continuously, and without collapse, even under conditions that would overwhelm others. Holding this understanding firmly allows you to integrate practical guidance. You now know the source of your stability. You now know that maintaining presence is natural. And with this awareness, you can orient yourself toward balance, rest, discernment, and focus in your daily life, ensuring that your internal coherence remains aligned with external reality. The next step is exactly that integration into practice. The application of this awareness in calm daily action, without hypervigilance, without strain, and without unnecessary judgment. Now let us focus on integration, the practical, calm application of this awareness into your daily life. Chosen one. Your stability is already present. What remains is how you orient yourself so that it continues naturally, without exhaustion or unnecessary tension. This is not about vigilance or forcing control. It is about balance, perspective, and deliberate alignment. The first principle is rest. Not just sleep, but intentional recovery. Your system has been absorbing pressure continuously, and rest allows it to recalibrate. Short breaks, moments of pause and attention to your body's natural rhythms reinforce the coherence you already carry. You do not need to overcompensate. You need to allow recovery. The second principle is discernment. Awareness of what truly matters versus what only feels urgent prevents unnecessary engagement with noise or distraction. You do not have to respond to every impulse, every tension, every external pressure. Calm evaluation ensures that your energy is preserved for the situations that actually demand it. Third, boundaries. Subtle pressures often arise from unregulated proximity tasks, environments that drain without necessity. Establishing boundaries does not mean avoidance. It means conscious allocation of your attention, ensuring that external demands do not compromise internal coherence. Fourth, patience. Processes, outcomes, and interactions rarely unfold on your timetable. Delays, interruptions, and minor setbacks are inevitable. Your rare stability is supported by patience, not impatience masked as control. Allow time to operate without forcing acceleration. Fifth, focus. Direct attention deliberately toward what is essential. Your mind can easily fragment when small pressures accumulate. Recentering on purpose tasks or priorities anchors your system and prevents energy from dispersing unnecessarily. Sixth, observation. Maintain quiet awareness of patterns without judgment. Recognize fatigue, tension, or doubt as signals, not failures. Observe them, integrate them, and allow them to inform your next step. This reinforces internal regulation without overreaction. By applying these 6 perspectives, you convert your understanding into daily practice. You are not creating something new. You are maintaining, reinforcing, and refining what already exists within you. Balance replaces hypervigilance. Awareness replaces confusion. Coherence replaces strain. Chosen one. Integration is subtle. It is the quiet alignment of thought, body, and attention. It is living with the knowledge of your inherent stability while honoring the natural rhythms and limits of your system. When done correctly, it allows you to navigate complexity without depletion, to engage with challenges without collapse, and to maintain the rare, uncommon functionality that has already defined your recent experiences. This practical orientation prepares you for closure. It ensures that awareness becomes part of life, not an extra burden. It positions you to move forward, grounded, calm, and confidently aligned with your internal structure. Now, chosen one. As we bring this understanding to a close, it is time to seal what you have recognized. You have endured subtle pressures, maintained internal coherence, and demonstrated a baseline of stability that is rare yet natural to you. This is not about dramatics, hype, or proof to anyone else. It is about knowing quietly and firmly that your system works and has always worked under circumstances that would unsettle most. Take a moment to acknowledge it. You absorbed doubt without losing confidence. You felt fear without being controlled by it. You navigated energy drains, isolation, and delays without collapsing. This is your reality, your confirmation, your evidence. And now you can carry it with calm certainty. Repeat quietly to yourself, I remain coherent. I absorb pressure without losing alignment. I function with presence and balance. Let these affirmations settle not as forced statements, but as recognition of what you have already demonstrated. They are your markers of truth, not aspirational goals. If you are willing, mark this moment with a small symbol of recognition. Comment 777 or write, I remember, as a code to acknowledge that you have internalized this understanding. This is not performative. It is a conscious act of self-acknowledgement, reinforcing the clarity you now hold. And as you move forward, allow yourself to continue observing, resting, focusing, and integrating without pressure. Subscribe to this channel if you wish to continue receiving guidance that reinforces awareness, stability, and practical insight. The next video will build naturally on this foundation, helping you deepen understanding of patterns, influence, and internal alignment. Chosen one. The core realization is simple. You have maintained integrity under sustained pressure. You have absorbed what others could not. You have remained present, coherent, and intact. And in that quiet, steadfast presence, the unseen currents around you have shifted. You have already altered outcomes simply by being exactly who you are. Carry that with calm certainty. Let it inform each choice, each pause, each breath. You are aligned. You are coherent. You are ready.